so maybe Charles was saying he's feeling a little down. There's not a lot of meaning, things like that, and so I guess the thing is, I guess what I would say is I'm just feeling like I have no time to myself. I just feel empty. I just get up, go to work, then go home and go to bed, that type of, is that what you're talking about maybe? Or is it anything more than
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a connection to anyone out here. Like,
yeah.
just kind of, I don't know. It's not much of a life.
Well,
It's just
yes.
sort of just enduring this. That's all I can really do out here.
I know. Well, the one thing I would do, and I'm just saying that this comes from he who can't do teaches, is to, give a hey Roy, how's it going? Yeah, Gary's not feeling that great today. Gary, is it your what is it you have?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe like some sort of flu or something. I'm just really fatigued and tired and stuff. Yeah.
I know. Well,
So, so on Charles' thing, I mean, like how much? I mean, you've been there for a while. How much longer do you have to? I mean, what's how much longer to run the course, which would be the best thing, if you can handle it.
The finish line is October 28th.
Oh, you've got a ways then.
Yeah.
And I can empathize. I know in the IT world, oh my gosh, it's like I've definitely had 6 day a week, 10-hour, 12-hour days and stuff. And you're right. I mean, it takes a toll, somehow you have to find something to yourself, something which kind of, gives you relief. And I don't know, I think, and I don't, to me, especially where you're at, I think it'd just be out there walking because, at least
there you go.
At least that's for you, you're not standing in place and putting together things and, having to assemble orders and stuff. You need like a walking meditation.
That's the only refreshing thing you can do, I think, in that kind of situation. Just walking through that beautiful nature and a walking meditation. Well, how would you describe it, Gary? What would you do if you were if you had just maybe 30 minutes to an hour?
It's like, yeah. So like if I had like 30 minutes, because I do this like all the time. I go down to Lawrence Gardens and I walk through there. And, I probably look pretty odd. But what I do is, I find like, I like to be on dirt, some of it's paved. And, because I want to really feel what I'm walking on. And, and so you turn internal, but then your whole focus goes to your breathing, so you're watching your breath. And each step you take, you do it as slow as you possibly can. And then you just try to feel, the connection to the earth and everything around you. And by slowing everything down, you'll find that all your perceptions just change. And
being out in
especially
nature too.
Yeah, well, there's that, but but the other thing is making this such a conscious act. It's I find it does some really interesting things to me. But especially considering what a rat race it is when you're at work and under that sort of pressure to suddenly be doing things as consciously as slow as you can and to connect to yourself and the ground and the breath. That's
don't let the day be empty of soul work, of ritual.
Yeah.
There's this Hasidic story of this very busy man who worked 7 days a week, and he worked 12, 14 hours a day, and he would be running to and fro, but every once in a while when he was running through an alley and he was all by himself, he would stop to pray and they said his prayer would split the firmament because it was because it came out of him totally. He realized that he was wasting, his life, in business. Yet he knew that there was something behind that. So
And I think that's a really good point too, is that, anytime during the day when there is a moment, you can switch consciousness. You can go to your breath. You can, just observe your breathing, breathe in for a count of 4, make it a belly breath, where your belly's expanding. And then when you breathe out for a count of 8. And, and just repeat that for, a few minutes, because you need a way to recenter, because if you just completely always caught in the whirlwind, it'll just kind of tear you apart.
Charles mentioned, that he had read the coagulation chapter in that in the Anatomy of the Psyche about 5 or 6 times, and I've been kind of reading it too, and one of it's just got a lot of very remarkable things, that there's two coagulation or 2 incarnations. We are not an animal, and we're not God. We're suspended between the two. And the first incarnation is our soul goes into an animal, and then it becomes a very, the ego formation occurs. And Charles, this ego formation occurring is told in all, hi, Tim. Hi, I was just telling something. Charles was seeming, I was thinking about how Charles so much emphasized the chapter on coagulation. And in myth, all creation myths are the story of how the ego came out of the animal body, okay? But what it says is, in Indian myths, they go down to the bottom of the sea and they bring up earth, and they make a little island, and it so much reminded me of Charles' dreams, and then, but once you've got the first incarnation, which is the soul comes into the animal body and makes the ego. This is what I was telling my wife, today. It's just a strange feeling, of how we are these strange animals that use words and language and thoughts and ideas and concepts and that come from the images that we see, but we make these long sentences about them, and I said, what would it like right now to not have any words, but to see people you like come towards you, to see a food that you like, but not think a word, just have that feeling of pleasure. And then so Edinger's saying that every time that he says there is a world of difference between a dream that is thought about and a dream that is spoken to someone else. He says, but when you speak that dream, you coagulate it. And what coagulation? Hey, Shu, I was just talking about coagulation. Okay. Edinger said there's this great difference. First of all, it came up because of the 2 incarnations. And I'll finish this real quick. But there's one incarnation of the soul falling into the animal body, and we're not an animal, and we're not a god. We're this thing that's suspended in between, and that's what Christ on the cross represents, suspended at the midpoint of a quaternity. This ego, he's not a man, he's not a god, he's suspended in between, and he can't leave the animal world. But the second incarnation, the first incarnation is where the soul falls into the animal body, And then the creation myths that Charles was talking about in some of his dreams is the Indian diver. I mean, the Native American hero child goes down into the ocean and pulls up bits of mud and forms the land, you know. So now we have land. That's how we have land. The land is the ego, you know. It's not the animal anymore. We have land. You know, we're
So
not.
Craig, repeat for Hugh the sentence you just said about the difference between the written and the spoken dream.
Oh, yes. Well, then Edinger says that that there is an absolute world of difference between the dream that remains in our heads and the one that is spoken about to another person. He says, because that means that something has, and this absolutely reminded me of Tim's precision airwork dream. Something fell out of heaven into the earth, and the earth represents the ego, you know. So the whole idea of coagulation is things fall out of heaven into the ego. That's coagulation, you know. So that second incarnation is once that ego has formed, is now to let another thing from heaven fall into it, and that is the divine. You know, the first thing that falls into us, it is that entity that can speak words and language, and that's what Edinger says, that speaking anything with words is entirely different than thinking it in your head. Once you've spoken it with words, he says it turns from mercury into lead. You know, it turns from this light quicksilver into something substantial, you know, and that's what he's saying is coagulation, is it falls out of coagulation is something that falls out of heaven into the ego and stays there. Where did it come from? It came from heaven. Where did it go? It went into the ego. That's coagulation. What was Tim's dream? Something falls out of heaven. A tower. This is definitely a heavenly thing, you know, and it falls into the earth. It falls into the ego. So what fell into Tim? Something from heaven. So this is somewhat of the second incarnation. So it's really a individuation dream. You know, the second incarnation is where something from heaven falls into ego. And the first incarnation is where the soul falls into an animal, which is our bodies, you know, and that the strange thing about being a human who can speak all these words and have all these sentences and all these thoughts. And the other thing is the amazing magic of analogy. Everything is an analogy. Now, why is it an analogy? Because we're trying to take the invisible world, which is ungraspable, and to make it intelligible in our time, space, bound brain. And the only way that it can be, have form is through analogy. And what are all dreams? They're images with a narrative, usually, you know, a setting, people in the setting, a crisis, a very, the high crisis, and then usually a resolution. Every single dream is like that. Now, you know, it's just, I don't know. It just was a strange thing. And then, when he talks about the magic of quicksilver going into words and speaking it, it is so strange that we're word beings. You know, I think that's something we can gloss over a little bit. But
Do you have the PDF of that book?
yes, I will send it to you, but it is absolutely fabulous. Now, Charles said he read it about 100 times, and I can see why. not just because it's a great chapter, and this is Tim, the one that Jan mentioned. This is this book, The Anatomy of the Psyche, and I thought what we would do in our classes just spend 5 or 10 minutes each time. We'll talk about, for 5 or 10 minutes, talk about coagulation. Next time about sublimatio. Next time about the prima materia. Next time about solutio, and then all the different alchemical operations. But you can just see from what he's talking about coagulation, how suddenly islands form in this thing we're talking about all the time, the unconscious. There's a thing. He also talks, Roy, about the telesphoros, and that they have one torch pointing up and one pointing down. There was a woman who had a coagulation dream with just that image.
Wow.
She had 2 candles, one lit and one that was unlit, and he said it was the telesphoros, Asclepius. How are you doing, Shu?
I'm going well, thank you. Yeah, it's fascinating. This
Well,
stuff.
it's great to see you.
This conversation is reminding me of that part of I think it was book 4 of the Corpus Hermeticum, with this creation of the world, and it said that when God made man, the thing that differentiated man from beasts was the mind and intellect, and it just reminded me of what you said about the words mercury turning into lead. As soon as it became dense in the because that intellect and the mind kind of changes form into a more denser form, and it gets into the animal world. It's
taken on a more dense form. And the fact that you mentioned that reminded me of one other thing. In the Emerald Tablets, this coagulation chapter explained this to me. When Hermes goes up into the upper worlds, into Tim's tower, he has a revelation there. But while he's up in that tower, he knows, while he's up in the tower, while he's in has made this great ascent into the top of the tower, he realized the strength of the tower would be perfected when it returns to the earth. And what he meant was when it is assimilated or coagulated into my own ego consciousness. Now that's what he meant when he said its strength is perfected. That thing that falls from heaven, its strength will be perfected when it falls into me. That's what he's really saying. And this tower that's falling into Tim is what Hermes found at the top of the 7th heavens, And what was funny, when he comes down through the 7 heavens, you know what he does? He, what he calls de-beards every one of the 7 astrological archons. In other words, he transcends the fate of the stars when he was born. When he was born, each archon put something on him, and all 7, and at the end, it defined who he was. Any of us. That's something Shu's But when Hermes goes up and he comes back down, he de-beards, is what it says, every one. And then when he reaches, he has transcended that fate that was put upon him when he was born. But anyway, I'm going to put the link to the Anatomy of the Psyche, but I just thought we'd spend a few minutes on it each time in the class, just on one operation at a time. But anyway, why don't we see if we can do 3 dreams? Now, how about you, Roy, or Gary? Do you have one?
Yeah, I have a short one that we could throw in if it comes to that.
All right. Well, and then Tim and Charles and Shu, if you have some dreams, do you guys, three guys have some dreams? Kim? You got one? Okay.
I don't have a dream, but I have some feedback on my active imagination. If you
Oh,
care
yes.
to-
Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? And then why don't Tim and Charles and Roy, let's try to get each one of your dreams at least introduced. And then Wednesday we can finish them. How about that? Okay, go ahead, Shu.
So
This is very fascinating to me.
it was so mind blowing to me. I went into an active imagination. I happened to do it when I decided to do it when I had a kinesiology appointment. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to do it there because I'm a mum. I've got no time. It was the only time I had. And I went and asked the farmers, what are you doing? And they said, the deer is dead and we're reviving it. So that's what they were doing with the battery. They were trying to revive, like the CPR thing. And I said, wow, I was blown away just by that. And then we couldn't revive it. And then so we decided to take it back to that tree that's been ring barked. We buried it in the ground underneath the tree. And as soon as it was in the ground, I just saw the roots of the tree just envelop this deer. And then this big shot of light comes through the tree up into the heavens. And it was at that point, the kinesiologist interrupted me and said, oh, I found a blockage. Your kundalini is being blocked between your sacral chakra and your solar plexus chakra, right? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I was thinking about looking at the tree, and that's exactly where the ring-barked area of the tree was. But as the light shot up the tree, the tree just healed as the light shot through. And I thought, wow, and she picked up this blockage in my mid area, which is the same sort of area of the tree. And I thought that was really fascinating.
What's
So
as above, so below.
Yeah.
I mean, but let's just read. So let's go over this one more time. First of all, the dream says that the group of farmers were on my property that caught a deer and were what you thought they were doing was torturing it. And you pleaded with them to stop, insisted they kill it humanely if they want the meat. Now, then they placed the deer on top of the battery and used jumper cables to give it electric shocks. So you thought that they were torturing it, but what they actually told you, no, we were trying to bring it back to life. Okay, because what was its role? The role of this instinctive animal. I mean, you've had the dream about the turtles, you've had the dream about the snake and the dogs, and now the deer, and wasn't there, what else was there?
There was the high school awards night.
Yes, and you had the one woman that was the one that seemed to have this revelation. You had one woman who achieved things through great effort, and another one that transcended adversity. So, but anyway, you've had these three. I think we did more than that. Yeah, somebody's got to remind me exactly what happened in that one. But you, so you talk to the farmers, and they tell you they were trying to revive the deer, and that was the idea of the electric shocks on top of the battery. And then they now this deer is this instinctive aspect, and but a higher form of instinct than the brown snake. And it is then put in the roots of what kind of tree was it?
It was a pine tree.
A pine tree. And then those roots enveloped it. So in other words, the roots of your, of some aspect in the psyche enveloped or, embraced the instinctive aspect. And then the spiritual aspect of the light that was shining could come into being. But the only way, is that correct? Could you say one more thing about what happen after could you repeat what you said about what happened after the roots enveloped the deer?
So then as soon as that happened, the light sort of shot up from the bottom up the tree. As it went up the tree, it healed all the ring-barked area and then shot right up to the top of the tree into the sky, like a big shaft of light.
Mm-hmm. Well, what it apparently when our you know, Jung always described himself as a rhizome, as a root. You know, that's who he was, and the idea was to let the root come out, you know, of the ground, and not his ego. The ego needed to let the root blossom, and then he would be its servant, and its very, very capable servant, but he was not going to stand in the way of the life force. Now, this also came up in Charles' dream too. So when the rooted aspect of us embraces the instinctive aspect, the spiritual aspect heals the spinal cord. And then the kinesiologist, is that something like a craniosacral therapy, or?
Sort of. They can work physically, but also they can work quite energetically, doing lots of things like muscle testing and yeah, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, Gary, what do you think of this? What comments do you have?
Yeah, I like what you had to say, you know, and I also think, you know, there's a significance that even with extreme measures, the instinctive aspect could not be revived above ground. The only way that the transformation could actually take place was it had to be embraced. It had to do the descent and be embraced by the roots. It was only from the root that the transformation could take place. And
it's the opposite of the turtles on the roof, almost.
Yeah. And then, you know, the other just sounds like a, you know, like a Kundalini flow, you know, like, oh, this is it, you know, now, and even like what you were there for the blockage, and now the blockage can be, you know, can be worked beyond. So, you know, that's my only addition. But I like what you had to say, and that was like, and the active imagination was just wonderful. You're an inspiration, you know, to us.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Now, how would you describe this? Did you actually sort of just see sort of a shadowy picture of this, or just image popped up in your head, or how would you describe it?
It was just like a movie. I just was watching it. Yeah, it just, and I was very relaxed. I was having a session,
Yes,
so.
Yeah.
That was, highly recommended.
Yeah. You know, that's why for me, if I don't do it, an active imagination before 6 a.m., it's not going to happen. I can't. Right. After 7 a.m., I'm too conscious. What do you think, Roy? You do some of this too, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with kinesiology. Do they have that in the States?
I'm not sure.
It's big in Australia. Okay.
Is it? Right.
It probably is in another form here, but it's a similar practice. But I'm not sure what it is. But I like it a lot. It sounds very interesting. A few points I wanted to make that ties in a lot of stuff in coagulation, where the spiritual goes into the ego and comes out as a form, and the animals diving down into the sea and bringing up dirt and piling it up. They piled it on top of a turtle, and the American Indians called America Turtle Island. And also the Hindus, you know, the earth was supported by turtles all the way down. And so, you know, this is quite a mythology here. It ties into a lot of things. And back to your dream, I would interested in who does the deer represent? I mean, this deer is ill and it's being healed, it represents something in the dreamer. Do you have some comments on that?
No, I'm not very familiar with deers. I didn't even think we had deer on the property. So, but it was interesting that I saw deer just a couple of weeks before, which was very strange on the property. You know, I mean, if they're like goats, I'm wondering whether it's like, you know, goats like the Capricorn goat that I am. But they're not really like goats, but they are sort of four-footed, hooved animals.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, that they're sort of theomorphic. It's an animal form of a human, something human. And it also connects to the dreamer, you know, to you, to Shu. It connects to Shu. But you haven't investigated that, or have you?
I'll have to do some thinking around that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that's my spiel.
Okay. Thank you.
And now, Tim, you've done, didn't you say you did some active imagination recently, or you have any comments on hers, shoes, or?
Well, yeah, I have to respond to this because Shu, as soon as you said that they said they were trying to revive the deer, I just had this really kind of profound embarrassment, because of course that's true, you know, and I'm kind of surprised that I didn't see that to begin with, because you have a bunch of guys with some kind of electrical device, you know, working on this animal, and the immediate response is, oh yeah, it's torture. And that's the way I felt when I heard it, when I heard the dream to begin with. And as soon as they say, no, we're trying to revive it, it makes perfect sense to me. And it makes me realize, well, this is my own shadow at work, because I'm trying to condemn these guys because it's easy, you know, and they kind of, you know, these idiot guys just line up with my shadow. And it's really easy for me to look at that and say, oh yeah, you're the bad guys. And it could be the opposite. It could be that these are the helpers. And so I'm looking at this in my own situation and thinking, oh man, how many times have I just identified a shadow figure and not given any thought to, well, maybe I'm projecting my shadow on this thing that is actually part of the, well, it gets a little complex, but you know, the shadow is anything that's unrealized. And so part of my good unrealized part is in the shadow. And so I can't really say that I'm condemning this as shadow. I'm condemning it as evil, and not realizing the transformative capacity of that. So you've given me some homework, because now I've got to go back and look at some of these images I have and see what I can do with them.
Yeah, and I did exactly the same thing in that dream about Carly and Lisa. I immediately thought that the mother was just a bad mother, didn't look after her children and all this sort of stuff. But you know, looking back, she was in tears. She was very proud of her daughter. She was a human being trying to do her best with what she had. So again, that was my shadow stepping in again to view her mother as, you know, this terrible mother that, you know, didn't look after her children.
Sort of a dark mother, a prima materia, out of which an ego comes and now needs to form itself. You know, it can't rely on the other aspect, and this instinctive aspect in you, or someone, maybe not you, but there was an instinctive aspect in someone that needed to be revived. And by the way, these farmers have a name. What do we call them? Restitution. Isn't it restitution farmers, or what do you call them?
Regenerative farmers.
Yes, regenerative farmers. And the instinct in us needs regeneration. So, this marvelous aspect of us saw the analogy immediately. Oh, shoo, you're meeting the regenerative farmers. By the way, we know something that needs regenerated. Do you know what it is? I mean, because now I'm all, we all are broken beings. I mean, if we were all Lao Tse walking around, we wouldn't really be doing this. But all of us have our beings with just leaves on half the tree and the other half's barren. And these very important dreams. The one about the turtles on the temple, the one about Lisa and the footballer. And then now this dream of the regenerative farmers, which if we hadn't done an active imagination. Now, let me say something else. That active imagination is the absolute final word on that dream.
Oh, right. Okay.
I mean, because it was spoken not by you, spoken
Right.
by the wisdom of nature, the informing wisdom of nature. So it told you what that dream meant. And if you hadn't done the active imagination, imagine the misunderstanding that would go on, before. And remember that, I just keep thinking over and over again that well, Tim, you had that dream about the African American people, wasn't it? Was it you? Or who was it?
Yeah, the band.
The band of the
Black guys.
African American, the primitive African American. Well, now, anyone in the United States would immediately feel a poison had been let into the room because somebody's a racist. Well, now, do you think that the informing wisdom of nature thinks that way? It doesn't think
Right.
that way. I mean, it has a totally, we are crazy people. The informing wisdom of nature is not crazy. It is trying to take a elliptical squashed circle and make it round. That's what it's kind of trying to do. Well, Charles, you haven't said much. Why don't we, if you have a dream or you have any comments on Shu's active imagination, why don't we at least get a start on it? But we'll try to get three. If Tim has a dream, and do you have a dream, Shu? You don't have a dream, but Roy does. So why don't we go Charles, Tim, and Roy? But we've got like 60 minutes, so we'll try to do about 20 minutes each, but at least we'll just get started on them, or we'll just see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Charles. Do you have any comments on Shu's dream? Or active?
No, it just sounded like a really successful active imagination. So yeah, impressed. Let me just find this dream real quick. Okay, all right, here we go. So this was back on May 16th. And so I went back to Russell's to find Molly and apologize for giving her unwanted attention and bothering her in the past. I get there and there was a man working there, and I told him why I was there and to see her. He said he would go get her and just told me to wait. I became very embarrassed and told him to just pass the message on to her. He said, no, I'll go get her. And a lot of people I had never seen before came around the corner as I anticipated her. I thought to myself that the entire staff had basically changed since I had last been there, because I didn't recognize anyone. And Molly came and was happy to see me, but she was a man. And I had assumed she became transgender. And of course, I was slightly disappointed by that. And I told her that I was sorry for bugging her and being persistent about dating her. She had no hard feelings, and it went well. She then turned into a woman, but was still sort of masculine and unattractive. And yeah,
Okay. Charles always has these just always very surprising twists in his dreams. And I love those. Okay. All right. We go back to Russell's. Now, Molly is kind of like, Tim's, I always forget her name. Was it Eloise or
Elisa?
Alisa? So, it's just sort of the Beatrice of, uh, of Charles, just the girl that is symbolizes to him. Now, I want to say something too about these when there is someone either in a man or a woman's life that seems like they are the the treasure hard to attain. Usually there's two aspects to that. One is, yeah, we need some anchor in the outer world, but we're over idealizing this person a little bit, you know. But the inner one is definitely is the treasure hard to attain, is the goal and whatever. But so we go back to Russell's and we're apologizing for now this is something all of us have experienced, unrequited love. We are in love with someone who doesn't return our love, but we're in love with them, but they don't reciprocate, and we can't understand why they don't reciprocate. If they knew what was in our hearts is so powerful, so why don't we reciprocate? And so, but the fact that Charles has realized this, apparently, that he wants to go back to the anima and to establish a human relationship with her. Now I'm really I know I'm going off course here a little bit because I'm getting I'm a little bogged down, but I'm going to do it anyway. He goes back for some reason to make amends, let's say. I don't think he has any sneaky motive of this is a fake apology so that he can still bother her. It's another excuse to bother her with the fake apology. Okay. But then someone says they'll go get her. Then he says with sincerity, no, I'll just pass the message on to her. So it wasn't a fake apology. And he says, no, wait. So, but now everything's changed. So we're it seems like this whole atmosphere that we set up in St. Louis at Russell's and with Molly and everything has transformed some way into more an objective and not so subjective. And I think that's the idea of the ego going there. It's realizing the objective symbol of the anima and not getting so attached to it in the wrong way, because you're not supposed to be attached to it in a sexual way. It's supposed to be transformational, and then so then Molly comes to see us. Now this we're gonna take two sessions on. Okay. She comes back, Molly, the anima that we love, and she has transformed into either a man or into a undifferentiated anima, like Foe in the Puer Aeternus, or Hermes Aphrodite. There's the hermaphrodite is Hermes Aphrodites, both Aphrodite and Hermes, and Hermes could be either male or female. So that might make her a very magical being. I don't know. I mean, she is okay. Hermes is the one has a little feather wings on his feet, because he is one who can go between both worlds, and he loves the company of the thieves and robbers as much as he does the holy ones. You know, he's everywhere. He's this life force. Now, we just had the dream about the life force. It's everywhere, but it just seems that that has something to do, that this might be a Hermes type character, because she says it's okay. She who understands everything forgives everything. So she forgives everything. But then she turns back into a man and a woman, but she's not a very, very feminine woman. She seems to be someone who's in the middle realm, you know, one who's both female and male, you know. So anyway, that's a start, but I think this one's going to take a lot of iterations. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, this one, I like this one. This is really interesting because, you know, he sees the unwanted attention. His consciousness raises. And so he goes back to form the connection in a different manner. So he gets there and he realizes the, you know, the difficulty, the awkwardness, but he waits. You know, he doesn't, because just because it's difficult, he doesn't give up. And then, you know, so this part wasn't real clear, but it sounds like all the members of this, you know, school or whatever it is, they kind of come out. And to me, this is like, you know, this is like starting to recognize maybe different aspects, different things are now coming into play. You know, I think that's actually like, you know, so you have more differentiation. You can see things in other ways. You know, these are sort of, you know, I'm thinking these are like different aspects of yourself. So that, you know, but this is witnessed in that way is like, you know, that shows like, you know, you can see this in different manners. And then, you know, she comes out and, you know, and even the part where, you know, she changes into a man, like if, you know, if you take like the example of Kali, you know, and like some of her statues, you know, and some of her statues are intentionally made to not be attractive. And the idea is that, you know, what's important isn't the, you know, the physical form. What's important is, you know, the aspects that she brings. So that, you know, that she has kind of a large belly, which is wrinkled and stuff, just shows her disdain for the entire, you know, physical realm. So that Molly is, you know, is like, it's kind of hard to tell, like, is masculine or feminine. You know, again, I actually interpret that in a positive form because, you know, because we all have both aspects, and it's important to be able to see both, you know, and to respect both aspects. So to me, this is like, you know, again, this is kind of increasing discernment, you know. So, and then let's see, what happened after that? That's all I remember.
That she turns into a woman, but she's rather mannish looking. I don't.
Right, right. And to me, you
like,
know, that kind of, that was sort of the Kali thing. Like, you know, that's like, it's like, it's important not to just lock on to the feminine aspects and like, oh, is this attractive or not? No, it's like, you know, there's many parts, and we have to be able to discern those and not just get, you know, fixated.
Yeah, well, the two things I would just want to mention based on what Gary said is, of course, Russell's is the place of the beginning. And you mentioned that. You've returned to the place of the beginning, the point of departure, and it's all changed. Everything's changed. So, you know, we left St. Louis, we went to Maine, we returned to the point of departure, and it's all changed. That's number one. Number two is what you just mentioned about Kali and everything. I have seen in which I thought was a very important development in Tim's dreams, is that these very pretty, beautiful women and everything that he'd been in having his dreams, suddenly, no, we're not going to have any more of those. We're going to have animals and we're going to have abstract forms. They're the same thing. But we have to get over the aspect of the alluring beauty of the life force. And to me, the feminine life force represents relatedness. It represents birth and rebirth. It represents the fecund quality of the rooted world, and it represents the nurturing aspect, you know, as opposed to the male aspects. And it can't be identified all the time with the fact, the Marilyn Monroe aspect of form, you know, because there's something so much deeper and mysterious that lies behind it. But anyway, took too long. Roy, what do you think?
And where I'm coming from is it's kind of a reconciliation dream. Because it was such a spectacular event in Charles' life, you know, it's going to come up. And I believe it's going to come up again. I don't think he worked through it in his dream. I mean, for her to be a man and then to be a masculine woman, it's sort of desensitizing his feelings. He didn't get in touch with his feelings. He's sort of desensitized. They're still there. He's not able to coagulate them. It's, you know, he's struggling with it.
Yeah, that's very good. I think both Roy and Gary. What do you think, Tim? You're a good expert on the anima.
Well, I kind of disagree. In fact, I feel like I'm perpetually confused about the anima and animus, and this Molly reminds me of Athena, who is, you know, beautiful, but she's also got her armor on and she goes into war, and it almost seems like Athena to me is the animus possessed anima. But in terms of Charles' dreams, it seems like I agree with Gary that this is a delineation of the anima figure. She's coming out and for the first time seems to be more complex than this kind of one-dimensional character. And that's really intriguing to me. And being able to have this drifting in and out of attractiveness is one of those things that seems really compelling to me because it draws your curiosity. You know, it's not just, oh, here comes Marilyn Monroe again. You know, I know how this is going to go.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really
swooning and yeah.
It's really a compelling kind of arrangement. What do you do with this, and how do you relate to this being who has this kind of changeable character?
Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head for me anyway, Tim, is the Athena type character in armor. There are two things missing right now, or I think they're coming, they're healing, is the male hero aspect in Charles of ego formation, and other one is the relatedness to the feeling function and to the feminine world. Both those things are emphasized in his dreams, and here they appear in the same being. The heroic male aspect and the feminine aspect are now combined into his redeeming figure, Molly. Okay, Molly seems to be the savior, sort of a savior aspect, but now she's acquired everything. You know, both the heroic male attitude, and she also possesses the relatedness of Eros and the feminine. I mean, it's a little confused what's dominating right at this point, but I think that our feminine and feeling related aspect, which we had known up until this point, we return to the beginning. She's there, and yet she has another healing aspect, is just the heroic male aspect. So she has everything we need. What do you think, Shu? And I'd like to hear what Roy has to say about that.
Nothing too much to add. I guess it does seem like a transmutation sort of dream where there is this need for connection in some sort of way, which is personified by Molly. But then it's also all a bit of an illusion, like what you're seeking connection with seems to be an illusion that it turns out to be something that you end up being repulsed by. Maybe it's the power of that figure that you're not, that.
Oh, wait, you got muted again. Just unmute yourself, Shu.
Oops,
Yeah.
sorry. This confronting aspect, this kind of not quite ready for what you asked for kind of feeling. And yeah, kind of lost my thought there, but yeah, that's just what I kind of read into it. Oh, this non-committal kind of, all of a sudden, wanting to back off, like, okay, not sure what not sure that I should have asked for that, or not sure that I should have gone for that, that kind of feeling of backing away from fear or repulsion or something.
That's very interesting. And Charles, could you answer that question? Number one, it seems like you're sincere when you're going there. And what was your feeling as you were entering Russell's? You felt a little awkward or something, but it was a sincere and genuine effort. At what Gary had mentioned, that you would become more conscious of your compulsive infatuations that you had. But then secondly, what was your reaction to Molly's in both her forms?
I was just nervous to see her again.
Yes. Afraid to be rejected or something.
Yeah, I mean, I was just in anticipation because she wasn't there right away. So I just, there's a lot of tension building up. And yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine how I'd feel if I were to actually go to Russell's and like see her. I actually took magic mushrooms last night, and at one point had a experience of how much, the indescribable amounts of energy that's tied up in her image, and that my feeling in my heart, my love is like kind of imprisoned in her image.
But it's not her,
Well, right.
She's represented.
And I think that's what this dream is about. Like that, I just apologized to this anima figure who was at the time a man, and they're just like, that's okay. Like, it's okay that you don't understand what I am, because I'm not just this woman. I'm also male and female. I'm the combination of them because I'm the creative, generative life force. So it is both man, woman, and all of nature. It's okay because it understands that I don't quite understand it. So, that's why, I think that's another reason why my anima images come in all types of forms and not just of a female.
You know what Marie-Louise von Franz said, and she could have said it as well to Molly as anybody else. she said it to some of her female analysts, that these boys who sit outside your window and howl like some tomcat, she said, they're not in love with you. She says, what they are in love with is love itself and life itself. That's what they're in love with. So when they're outside our window howling, it isn't, we're not the object, the real object of their howling. The real object of their howling is within them, and it is love and life. And also, you know, something to do with, I just saying, the aspect of rebirth, of regeneration, of the ever newness of new life coming into being, which would represent, you know, the parental aspect of being a parent and everything, you know. But I would say that, you know, in my own case, if I had a girlfriend like that who rejected me, and I just, you know, stalked her a little bit, and then time went by, I wouldn't have the guts to go in and see her, you know. But Roy or Gary, what do you have to say about the fact that this double figure, it's a double figure that seems to represent both the missing heroic aspect and the related and feeling aspect?
Well, you know, I'm actually going to slide over a bit more to what Roy had to say.
Mhm.
And the reason for this is just, you know, hearing now Charles talk about her, you know, and my own experiences, you know, in my youth with, you know, loves lost that were just not going to happen, you know, is that, you know, it's pure Maya. It's a trance-like state. And, you know, and we do it to ourselves. And, you know, and because of that, what we end up with is, you know, is all sorts of projections, you know, on the other person of things that, you know, are really just not there. It's all coming from us. Yeah. And so in that case, you know, all these different forms that she's going through, you know, those could all be, you know, it could either be for like, hey, listen, you know, whack, whack, wake up, you know. This is not what you think, you know, or it, you know, or it could just be like, you know, projections and, you know, and the different ways that, you know, maybe Charles is seeing her. But, you know, I still think in a way it's increasing consciousness. And yet I think what Roy had to say on, you know, there's still unprocessed things there and getting in touch with the feelings, you know, I think that's probably dead on.
She might be becoming a negative mirror that throws your projection back at you. Don't use me as the hook for your projection. You're totally misinterpreting what's going on here. And I am not going to be the hook for your projection. I am an independent psychic entity within you. And don't throw these projections at me and use me as something to latch onto, because I won't stand for it. What do you think, Roy, about the double aspect of the male and female?
Well, I don't think it's a projection from Molly, although women do that. You know, that's a stereotype and it's done, but I don't think Molly did that in this dream. I think Charles did it because he was trying to desensitize. I mean, he experienced the numinosum. He experienced the newsome. Who can stand that? And it's polarized with our representations of the noumena, the phenomena, our socialization. Who can stand the noumena? And he'll get another chance to face it. It might not be Molly, but it'll be another anima figure. And we learn with each one of our encounters. And if we can capture, if we can experience the numinous, we'll know what to do, and we'll do the right thing.
It's a completely brave aspect by the ego to do this. And it is also the ego recognizing to some extent the projections that it has been made, and saying and recognizing that Molly is not, I mean, there is an implicit confession in here that Molly is independent of my feelings for her. She's an independent entity that is independent of my feelings, not just for her, but for love and life itself. You know? So this was a very brave act by the ego, I think, by Charles' dream ego to do this. And I think Charles, throughout the whole thing, maintains a very proper attitude towards the anima and towards the inner world. You know, but he's come to the place of departure again. It's completely changed. He wants to. He comes. This circumambulating the center on the second go round. We're going over the same circumambulation, but now we know more than we did the last time. So Charles already admitting that he knows more than he did the last time. Well, now let's finish this dream up, because Charles, we haven't even touched the surface of it. Tim or Shu, did you have any thoughts? Okay.
No.
All right, great. Tim, Charles, do you have anything? The comments you made were incredibly helpful about the incredible amount of the power of the Molly image within you, and how important it became in your magic mushrooms experience. Could you just describe that a little bit more, just a few more details?
I don't know. I mean, I just remember seeing her. I couldn't see her face, but it was almost just like I remembered, like, oh yes, Molly, like, and just it just, that image is like an experience in and of itself, and it evokes
Awake.
I mean, it just evokes so much energy and like love and feeling. And one thing that I have somewhat of a problem with is like, okay, so I project my anima onto Molly. Okay, well, I'm just speaking hypothetically or theoretically here, like, am I supposed to not try to date someone that I have a anima projection on? Because I mean, it's like the second I can realize my projection. So if I realize I'm projecting onto someone, then do I just go, oh, well, I guess since I'm projecting onto them, I shouldn't pursue that relationship. And then I just date someone out of pure practicality and like,
That's a dilemma.
rationale.
Totally dilemma. I was
Boy,
thinking about that. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I would say no, that's the wrong way to go about it. Because once you realize you got a projection, that's the hard part. But if there's somebody that easily projects, that you easily project onto, it seems to me that there's more material there. There's a reason why you need to be together, and the more emotion there is involved, that just simply means, okay, you have to do some homework. It's not like you want to avoid that person, because that's the person who has the treasure. I've heard it said that we tend to marry our contrasexual parent to try to work out our stuff. That seems to be sort of a law of nature, but All we need to do as advanced creatures is to be able to recognize that that's what's happening and say, okay, here's the dilemma. Now, what am I going to do with it?
You know, I'd actually go a little bit farther than that. I would say that we actually, you know, we tend to marry our projection. And then as the relationship develops, you know, then we find out who it is that we really have married. And, you know, and then you make adjustments. But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, there's no way that you're not going to be interested in someone that you've got projections on. And there's no way that you're not going to project on them. You know, I think because the projections are going to create a lot of the interest to begin with, you know.
Well, like Young said one time, when someone was asking about projection, why did they choose that one? And he says, that's like asking, why, you know, why did you choose that crocodile to eat you? You know, the idea here is that it's an absolutely involuntary event. You've been overwhelmed and overcome because they have awoken an archetype within you. You have no control over it. The only way that you can, now here's the problem. Poers, me, and Charles, we have undifferentiated feeling functions. If this person who we have suddenly become infatuated with is not reciprocating and is putting us off and everything, and puts us off over and over again, and yet we just keep, because of our undifferentiated feeling function, we're too dumb to get it. At that point, it's totally a train wreck, you know. But if we project on someone and they do reciprocate, wonderful. But at some point, we're going to find out, and this is what Joseph Campbell says, that what we projected on them and what they are two completely different things. And so he said, then you have two choices. One, you can say, I withdraw the projection and I'm dumping you, okay? And the other one is to have compassion for that being and to realize that the one that was at fault was you, and that she is showing feelings for you because she accepted you and is now living with you. And you realize that your projection wasn't the same. So now you try to get to know the real living being and not these false projections that you have. I had one girl dump me because she said that I was putting her up on an on a tower. She didn't want to be put up on a tower. She had differentiated feeling function. She knew exactly what I was doing, and I was too dumb to know that. But it was an eye awakening for me. Well, anyway, let's finish this dream next week and try to. We're not anywhere near done, Charles. So Tim, how about you? Do you want to introduce your dream, and then we'll see if we can get Roy at least to read his dream. That magic aspect of taking what's in our heads and speaking it out loud, turning it into lead. Go ahead, Tim.
Sure. I've got
Oh, good. He has it in text.
I've got a couple of orienting comments about this.
Okay.
First of all, Shu, I've been a member of this political satire comedy group for 45 years called the Montana Logging and Ballet Company. And so that's referenced here. And we all met at my alma mater, Rocky Mountain College, that's referenced. And Tyler Hall here is this old castle-like building where I had my first studio outside the home. You know, I started making sculptures when I was 10 in the garage of my house. And my first studio outside the house was in the basement of this abandoned building. So that's the history of where this comes from. So
put a link to your artwork in the chat if you could, Tim, your website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So this is called The Missing Props. I'm on a trip with my partner and we crash some kind of workshop at Rocky on the campus. During this thing, the group takes a lunch break, and I speed up to Tyler Hall, where I believe the MLBC has some props, costumes, and equipment stored. It's an abandoned building, so I find a door that is unlocked, and I start making my way through the building, looking through closets and opening doors, just looking for stuff. I find a few things like huge quantities of boxes of plastic forks left over from hundreds of events. And I think this is just such a waste. But I can't find any of the material I'm looking for. I'm only able to get through a certain portion of the building when it's time to go back. And so I have to abandon my effort.
That's the end of the dream then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's called The Missing Props. It's always really good to put a title on a dream. Okay. Now we're on a trip with, I think would be a helping partner within us. And we crash some kind of a workshop at Rocky. Okay. Could you just, now you just may have said what that is, but could you say again what the workshop at Rocky would be?
I don't have any sense of that. But my sense is that I didn't sign up for it. I just ended
Okay,
up there.
you just ended up there. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's taking place on campus though.
you just start participating in, and there's some
Yeah.
event going on that you weren't signed up for. So it isn't really like you're not causing any problems. You just started to participate in an event that was already going on.
Yeah.
And then the group takes a break for lunch, and we go up to Tyler Hall, where we believe the MLBC has some props, costumes, and equipment stored. Okay, this is interesting. We are going to, apparently what we want are costumes, okay, or some type of a persona attitude. I find an open door and start making my way through to the building, looking through closets. You find huge quantities of forks, of things to assimilate food with, okay, to eat food with, from hundreds of events. Let's see, I find a huge quantity, but I find things like huge quantity. Can you remember of any of the other things you found? From
Not
hundreds of
specifically,
events?
but it's all just like,
Hodgepodge.
yeah, and stuff that, has a little bit of value, but it should just basically be thrown out.
But no costumes. Okay. Now, so what we apparently were looking for was some type of a transforming garment. Okay. One that is going to allow us to enter a role. Now, we go to a workshop. A workshop, don't they tend to be consciousness raising type of a thing? Do you think that's what it is or not? What do you have any idea what the workshop was about?
No, it could have
Yeah.
been, an art thing or.
Okay, so yes,
I have no idea.
some type of event, but we know at the lunch break that we are missing something. And what we apparently are missing is the persona attitude. There's some aspect of the, now the persona attitude can be two things. One, Jung said that, a lot of dreams say, like, if you're about ready to die, suddenly a wedding gown appears, when they're, in other words, whenever, not just necessarily death, but anytime there is a great shift, a transformation to occur, we need a ritual garment, because we are entering a new body. Okay. And so the idea of when a woman who's about to die suddenly sees a wedding dress, you know, because she's going to unite with her animus, you know. But in this case, you need some type of thing because you're going to do something that is very important. Now I'm gonna let everybody else talk here so that we have enough time, and we're gonna have to finish it on Wednesday. Gary, what do you
Just to
think?
clarify a little bit,
Yeah.
it seems like I'm not so much after costumes as it feels like I'm after something of value that has been put aside or stored from that entity, that group.
Okay, so
It's not so much a persona thing, it feels like, unless it has to do with the group, bringing the group back to
Okay.
life or something.
let's just state it one more time. Okay. Because you and this helping partner go to the group, you realize that either the group or you require something that you don't have. You think that it might be in this other group, but you go there and the cupboards are empty. So in other words, what ego requires is not there. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
in
it
other
could
words,
be there, but it could be hidden.
could be hidden, but the
Yeah.
ego is just like in every town that we get lost in, every course that we don't know where the classroom is, the ego is lost. Okay. Has some aspect of it cannot accomplish this. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, what I find interesting about this, and I don't have a lot to offer, but it's the MLBC, you know, the logging ballet company group that, you know, this is where he goes to find the missing aspect. And to me, this is, you know, it's like there's a key here because, you know, he knows he needs something in addition, you know, for this work. But what it's saying is that, you know, that this is kind of a, you know, it's a lighthearted, it's a, you know, it's kind of a intuitive, but, you know, but it's, you know, something that's very free and loose, almost like, you know, like I remember telling people that, you know, I think we have to be willing to play the part of the fool to help, you know, to help some people in some situations because, you know, we get stuck in having to go on intuition. And a lot of times, you know, there's sense and then there's nonsense. But that doesn't mean that, you know, nonsense doesn't mean that, you know, that it's ridiculous. It means that it's outside the realm of sense. And to me, that, you know, what he's looking for something, you know, which is the MLBC, which is outside the realm of sense, which he can bring back to help the group.
It could be it could be the conscious attitude because it's a political satire group, or it could be the something that's trying to break up the forms of the conscious attitude. Either way, but there's a potential that they have something that could help us over here, and the cupboard is empty for some reason. What do you think, Roy?
Yeah, I'm getting the feeling that it has to do with this MLBC group, something associated with that Tim experienced in the past. He's trying to connect to it. He would know what that is better than the rest of us, but that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, we probably need another clarifying statement from Tim about whether this was just a conscious attitude or it had something relations to unconscious. But let's hear what Shu and Charles have to say, and then maybe Tim can give us some more clues. What do you think, Shu?
Yeah, it's interesting that it seems a very similar dream to Charles's dream, where we're looking for someone or something, but that someone or something just turns out to be a little bit corrupted to what we were looking for. But it seems like Tim is looking for something deeper, something of value, but what he's getting are adornments, superficial things, or, you know, crappy things like plastic forks. And it's not reaching to the depths of what he's actually seeking. And it's like he's in the wrong place. It's in some storeroom, like a basement or something that's not very important or sanctified, or, you know, like a temple or something. It's like he's looking for something of the divine or something extremely valuable, but in the pits, basically.
Yeah. Now, see, this is, Shu, why you're so valuable. You know what things of value are. We men are, you know, feeling function stupid, you know. But I mean, seriously, that was didn't you, I mean, at least myself, I felt that is, what do you think about that, Tim? That seemed to be speak true, didn't you? That there's something of value
Right.
that is there. And so is the thing that is of value in our cupboards, the thing of value that we need is not in our cupboards, you know?
Right.
Yeah, something, so it can't be found there. It needs to be found somewhere else. I don't know.
Well,
Shoot,
this is,
yeah, go ahead, Tim.
well, this is really helpful. I'm just thinking of the current situation. This is a group that we basically retired about 5 years ago, and all of a sudden this summer we got kind of shoehorned into doing a gig, and I'm trying to write material for this gig, and so it's very much almost literal that I'm going back trying to find something of value in the closet, you know. So that gives a different perspective. I hadn't even thought of that until what Shu started to say, or what Shu said started to make me think, oh my gosh, that's right. You know, I am rummaging through the closet.
I really felt I was being brought into the earthy reality of where you were, you know. What do you think, Charles? Do you have any comments?
I was curious, what's going on at this workshop that is mentioned at the beginning of the dream? What kind of workshop are we talking about?
Well, I wish I could remember. It seemed like something I was interested in, but not necessarily wasn't part of my program, or, you know, I hadn't signed up for it. So it's not real kind of serious stuff, but an interesting subject of some kind.
What's the trip on the partner for? Why are you and the partner on a trip?
I just have this vague feeling, this is probably the middle of a longer dream, but it seems like this woman and I were going somewhere, and we stop and get involved in this thing. And
you and the anima, that's important.
Well, yes, except that I have no emotion about that, no connection, no memory of interaction with her.
It sounds a little bit like your situation you were describing. You're workshopping the material for this gig that you've been shoehorned into doing unexpectedly after not doing gigs for 5 years or whatnot. But it's like the material's not doing it for you. Like you're looking for something better, or you're looking for, you know, something that's going to cut a bit more deeply with you. And it's like, are you having trouble like coming up with the script? And that sounds like it's reflecting that situation that you were just describing.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. That's beautiful. Well, there is that. I think. Anyway, why don't we let's see. Anybody got any other comments? And then maybe Roy, could you just send us your dream, and you could just talk about it. Then we'll finish all 3 dreams next time. And then if Shu or Gary, if you're here, maybe you're a Monday person or a Tuesday person, but
Yep.
we'll be next time you're here, we'll drop everything for a dream if you can bring it. But Tim, do you have any closing thoughts about it, or what Shu said?
Well, you know, as we go through it, I realized that there were other parts of the dream. It seemed like there were some guys in this building,
Mhm.
but I can't reconstruct it. So
Yeah.
I'm going
Well-
to try to add that.
Well, we will definitely beat it to death next time.
Okay.
Okay, but at least we got a start on it. Roy, could you introduce your dream real quick? And so at least we have it ready for next time we can. I really think it's so helpful to have these dreams where I can sit just and with my eyes closed thinking about them, you know?
Yeah, sure. It's real short.
Okay.
I'm in a golf cart with two women. The golf cart's running good now. The tires are inflated. I'm sitting in the middle. One woman reaches over and took my hand. She held my hand. It was a wonderful experience of sensation and feeling.
Okay, now let's could we describe the dream before that? Let me see if I have it. The one about your father and the inflated tire. Don't you think this is a was part of the series?
Well, I've been doing my dreams one after another. You know, this one came after
Mhm.
the one where I'm at the truck terminal
Yeah.
on
So you were in
June the 23rd.
yeah, you were in you had went to the truck terminal because one of the tires in your golf cart was uninflated. This is your father's golf cart, and there you met Paul and Uncle Paul and his son. And anyway, to fix that, and you have a lot of experience with golf carts, right?
Well, yeah, I'm over at the Fruit and Spice Park, and they have a bunch of golf carts. So at least once a week, I'm riding in one. I don't have one myself.
It's a very important vehicle.
Apparently, my
vehicle.
dream maker likes it. Likes a
Well,
golf
yeah.
cart. Oh, this is
And-
cool.
I say every it's got 4 wheels on it, so it's a quaternity. It now here's the other thing is it now has 2 centers that move around together. Cars, planes, everything, and golf carts, and before horses. You know, it's not just us. We're riding around in something that moves in tandem with us, but it's not us. Okay. Now, in this one case, we needed help in the father realm, and then the Uncle Paul is there. So somehow this aspect of us had went back to the father realm. The father we had great respect for. We felt a great void when he had left us. So our vehicle, our soul vehicle, needed to revisit the father realm. You know, maybe it was feeling like it needed regeneration. Something was flat in us that needed his spirit, you know, to fill it back up, that thing that was flat in us. Okay, then this dream here, I'm going to shut up, is we suddenly meet the anima. Okay, so there's the golf cart, there's the 2 women, and there's us. And then one of the women holds our hands. So the feeling function is awoken in this dream. Every dream should experience all 4 functions. But here the feeling function is very much emphasized. Where before it might have been the intuitive or the thinking function or something.
And the sensation.
Yes, and sensation, the fact of the whole. Why don't we just get a quick word from each person, and then we'll take it up again next time. This is a very good session, really. And I don't think we finished anybody's dream, but got to start. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I just really like the progression from that, the previous dream to this one. And, and I think some dreams are really just about, like the one event. And I think this is a perfect example that intense emotional experience of being connected with that woman. So, I think that's it. Maybe that's just like, here's a wonderful experience, from the dream maker for your attention and work.
It's
Spirits of the
just heart
numinous.
melting. I mean, it's just heart. The heart is just my heart was just melting. What do you think, Tim? Any
Well,
quick
it feels
thoughts?
to me like that's sort of the pinnacle of dream activity, is making that connection, that emotional connection with the other,
Mhm.
like in some form of a hieros gamos. It, that's always what I think of as being the height, the thing, the getting the golden ring.
Well, there's the
So
father world and now the feeling world have been constellated in a sort of a ongoing myth. What do you think, Shu? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I have an astrological thought because this week is a very significant week with the planet Venus and Venus and Mars. And it's interesting that all three dreams today have had to do with desires, relating, connectivity, procreation, that renewal, rebirth, all that's the feminine sort of stuff. And we're starting this week. We're at the end of a Venus Mars synodic cycle, and we're about to commence one very soon. And I was actually looking at past occurrences of these Venus Mars synodic cycle. It's a very erratic cycle. But if we look at every 32 years, they occur in the same sign. And I wanted to do a little bit of a case study this week, and I decided to use Jung as my case study. And I noticed a pattern. I just picked one 32-year cycle. So one when he was 6 years old, when he started to discover his mother's, mental disturbances and her being able to talk to and connect with the other worlds. And it was quite frightening and scary to him. And then she was hospitalized soon after that. 32 years later, when he was 38 years old, he started having all these haunting visions and dreams, and that became the material for his black book. And then 32 years after that was when he was 70 and he had his second heart attack. And he actually believed that his heart attacks were his inability to resolve the mysteries of the conjunction, which is Venus Mars, the sacred union. And he used the term the hieros gamos or whatever.
Saw three of them it was on 4/4 of 44, and the first one you mentioned was approximately 1913, and then that was well, it would have been 80, would have been 81, yeah. But anyway, that was when he had the three weddings.
Yes,
And-
so yes, that's right. But it's interesting that the term of the hieros gamos, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, sacred wedding or sacred.
The ability, he said that it was, his heart attack was his inability to solve the sacred marriage, like to solve the mysteries of the conjunction. And that's his body's response of these heart attacks, his broken heart, like his heart is, he's failed to do that. And that's what he believed that his heart attacks were. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? This is each time Venus and Mars made a new cycle in Virgo, which was in his 8th house of death and panic and anxieties and fears and shadows. But that's all happening this week, in fact. We're starting a new Venus-Mars synodic cycle, and all these dreams have got to do with this idea of trying to find something to connect with.
Yeah.
So somewhat
Beautiful.
from a sacred union.
Well, I want to tell just one quick anecdote. you know, he and von Franz was writing Aurora Consurgens, and he was writing Mysterium Conjunctionis at this point. And after he came out of the his near-death experience on 4/4 of 44, by the way, he tells Marie-Louise von Franz about their work so far. Everything that we've done so far is correct, but I didn't know it until now. So, in other words, the intellectual aspect suddenly became Venus related, the heart related. Anyway, I think we got a bunch of stuff to talk about next time. So, and Shu, if you're here Monday and you have a dream, we'll talk about yours first. But we'll finish up Charles and Tim and Roy's dream. And Gary, hopefully you'll bring a dream at some point. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. And it's always a pleasure to have you drop in, Shu.
It's so good to be here.
You help us so much.
Oh, really? Oh, gosh.
Well, I mean, we need that voice, seriously. Okay. Well, anyway, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Okay. Bye, Roy,
Bye.
Gary,
See
Tim,
ya.
Charles, Shu. Bye-bye.
Bye.